You may have you may have noticed that I am here solo. John Neff had planned to be part of this gathering and was not able to join me after all this afternoon. So on behalf of John and I want to welcome everyone here. And we are going to keep it fairly informal and go through just some of the key pieces and then open it up to the key pieces about the new policy for paying pastoral charge supervisors, some of the training and then and requirements, and then also question and answers. So we've sort of scheduled till 3:30, but if we wrap up and no one has questions before then that's fine as well. Let us take a moment to open with prayer. Holy One, on this November, we are gathered as your people and as your church. We give thanks for all who share of themselves and their gifts and skills to help others. We lift up those we are holding in our hearts. We lift up our world, which is in need of healing and compassion and reconciliation. Lord, may your blessing be upon our time together, that it may renew us and provide information we need. This we pray in Jesus' name. Amen. And I would also mention that wherever you are, we are meeting on Indigenous lands that have been cared for hundreds of thousands of years before settlers arrived. And so we give thanks not only for that stewardship in the past, but for their ongoing presence and participation in our nation. And we look forward to improving our relationship and working towards the calls to be the church for truth and reconciliation, so that we might truly be able to be neighbors who love one another. So let's just take a quick moment. We were going to have an opportunity for people to introduce themselves. I'm not sure how easy that's going to be with 35 people though. So I'm going to suggest instead that we take a minute and put in the chat if you wish to share your name and your regional council, and if you want to mention sort of where you are serving as a pastoral charge supervisor, or something else exciting about yourself. I'll leave that to your discretion. So let's just take a couple minutes to do that now. Okay, thank you. And I hope everybody's having a chance to read these along with me. It's great to see that we've got people from across all three regions and serving in a variety of situations. And I know that every pastoral charge supervisor uh, uh, appointment has its own unique challenges and strengths. And so everyone here is bringing specific gifts, skills, stories, experiences that we also encourage everybody to share, and we can help each other and help provide the best support to you in this role, and also to the congregations that you are serving. And that's part of why we do have the policy about paying pastoral charge supervisors. So as I mentioned, John was unable to be with us this afternoon. I am Lynne Allin, and I am the Minister for Congregational Support for Antler River Watershed and Horseshoe Falls Regional Councils. And John and I work closely together because we try to keep the policies consistent as much as possible between the three regions. And so I'm just wondering, I hope that by now most of you have heard about the policy for paying pastoral charge supervisors. We had it at all three of the regional gatherings this fall, so that people had an opportunity to go into breakout rooms and discuss it a bit, which was great. I've received the feedback from those breakout groups for Antler River Watershed. I think the feedback went to Mark Laird for Horseshoe Falls, so I haven't seen that yet. But we do know that there were a lot of very positive comments. And I think Anne Harbridge has the comments for Western Ontario Waterways. The idea is something that's not unique to our regions. There are other regions across the United Church who've already been in this process of paying pastoral charge supervisors. Some of them have been doing it for quite a while. Some of them it's new. Some they pay the actual supervisor. Some they pay the congregation. I mean, there's all kinds of varieties of policies in terms of how to offer some compensation. But the shared piece is that the role of the pastoral charge supervisor is essential for the work of the church. It requires gifts and skills and time, and we felt that it needs to be recognized for what it is. The things have changed. It used to be that, you were asked to be a pastoral charge supervisor for a neighboring church who was, maybe going through a search process, and that might be 6 months, at most a year. We now have situations where congregations are without a minister for several years, or they've decided to be a lay-led congregation, or they have someone that they've hired who is a student and needs a supervisor. Like, there's many different reasons why a pastoral charge supervisor might be needed. And this is a recognition for the fact that it now is an ongoing role in many situations. So it's not something that is just a short-term commitment. And we also know that in some cases, the supervisor is there during some significant transitions, like amalgamating or disbanding or selling property. And that too can be more time consuming than just attending, regular board meetings. So that is some of the reasons, rationale behind the decision to move towards paying pastoral charge supervisors. The recommended amount is going to be $35 an hour, but that will not include travel time. That's partly because we're encouraging congregations to meet by Zoom whenever possible. And also the congregation doesn't have any control over, who might get appointed. If we can't find a pastoral charge supervisor close by and we have to appoint someone an hour away, that didn't seem to be appropriate to put on the congregation. The mileage for pastoral charge supervisors will continue to be paid as well. That is paid through the regional council, and there is a simplified expense form that is available to you. I believe John is going to be putting it on the website, but if anyone needs it, you just have to ask us, and it gets sent in to Krista Ford, who manages our finances, and then she helps set you up for automatic deposit. And so we ask that you send one in a couple times a year or whenever you feel it's appropriate. I'm looking over at the policy here for the payment. Again, we are going to ask that you submit to the congregation you are serving as a supervisor an invoice at least twice a year for your hours with them. And this would be for meetings of their governing body, their board or council, and meetings of their congregation. And then sometimes if you're in a session stewards model, you might be attending the session meetings as well. And again, please keep in mind you can attend these remotely through Zoom or even by phone if you need to. Although we do know that congregations, in some cases, it's easier to attend in person, especially for a congregational meeting, for example, where there might be lots of questions that people want to ask. We have recognized as well that there may be some situations where it is a burden for the congregation to pay this fee. And in that case, they will be invited to have a discussion with the Congregational Support Commission, and we'll look at each situation individually if that is a concern. And for supervisors in a situation where the minister is in the admissions process, the regional council will pay the pastoral charge supervisor. And that's because we want to encourage diversity within the United Church, and we want to encourage congregations that are searching to look at those who are in the admissions process. And we don't want this to be a barrier for them to hesitate about hiring someone in the admissions process. So that will be a special case in that situation. If, for example, I've heard from a few supervisors saying, but we don't want to be paid, this is part of our gift to the church, that's fine. We ask that you still accept it because it's part of the budgeting process for the congregation. But then you are welcome to donate it wherever you'd like, to M&S or back to the congregation, but keep in mind that you wouldn't want to set a precedent that if there was a supervisor who followed you to that church, that there is then an expectation that that money would be donated back. So that's why M&S might be a more appropriate option if you don't wish to keep the payment. The congregations will also have to create a T4A form for you if the amount goes over $500. So that will be their responsibility as well. And then you have to include that, obviously, in your taxes. Are there any questions so far? Or comments?
Lynn, have congregations been let know about the $35 per hour, or is that our responsibility?
So right now we have talked about it in our fall gatherings. I'm not sure if that amount was actually mentioned. The commissions are all in the process of approving the policy. And then there'll be an announcement that'll go out in newsletters. And that's a good point, Anne. I suspect John and I will be talking about how we let the congregations know. Because some of them don't have lay reps to the fall meetings, so they won't know this is happening. And yeah, we don't want it to turn into a shoot the messenger situation where the supervisors are in an awkward position.
Thank you.
Yeah. Judy.
So I would agree. Having to say, oh, by the way, you need to pay me now $35 an hour is really awkward, especially for congregations who really don't want you there in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have to, say, no, I have to be here. And oh, by the way, you have to pay me.
Right.
So it'd be better if it came from the region itself. And in my memory of our annual meeting, it was $30 or $35. They had not come to an agreement.
Okay. Yeah. And so, yeah, that's what we will need to do is let the congregations know, and also remind them that you are there as a resource for them. And without a pastoral charge supervisor, they cannot pass motions. And so they really do need to have your presence. Fred.
Excellent. You mentioned situations where the person in the pastoral charge was in the admissions process. What if you're supervising a pastoral charge where the person is on an SME?
SME, we felt that the congregation should be able to pay that because they're paying a smaller salary rate because they've hired a student. So again, if that becomes a challenge for that congregation, then we'll have the discussion with them. But that was the rationale behind that decision.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. And sometimes some of those SME sites, they get a salary grant as well. So some of them have some support in paying for the student, or the candidate, I should say. Anne again.
What about the case where a diaconal student is appointed who is still in the candidacy process? Does the charge still require a pastoral charge supervisor then? And how would that all work out?
Right. So it's the same as a candidate in the ordination stream. As long as they are a candidate and haven't been recognized or ordained, then or commissioned, then yes, a supervisor is required.
Thank you.
Yeah. Judy.
So also it's the same for a DLM student. We still have those.
Yes, correct.
And so it's also for those who aren't recognized as well as ordained and commissioned.
Correct.
The one question I had was, when is this supposed to come into effect?
January 1st.
Thank you.
Yeah. Robin.
Yeah, my question is, should we be tracking phone calls in terms of time?
Oh, good question. Yes, I would think so. That's part of the work of being a pastoral charge supervisor. So
Okay.
I tongue in cheek say that this might make for quicker meetings. People might decide to be a little more.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that is the piece around the payment. The other side is that with that shift, we also felt there is a more of an accountability piece that goes with it. And so that is why we have created more expectations around the requirements for pastoral charge supervisors. So for example, we have created the course on ChurchX, and we will be asking that all supervisors complete that course. I think it's over in the next so many months, 6 months or so. But that course, for those who haven't taken it already on ChurchX, it takes about an hour. So it's not too time consuming. And then it also gives you access to the handbook, which has a lot of extra detail and resources for those situations that aren't every day that might pop up. So you can keep going back to the Church X course anytime you want to look up something in that handbook. We are expecting boundaries training, racial justice training. So if you're currently serving in ministry, you already know you have to have those, and you update those as required by the Office of Vocation. If you are retired, then we will be asking you to make sure you keep those up to date as well. And if you are a layperson serving as a pastoral charge supervisor, then we'll need to get you enrolled in those courses too. In those cases, for the lay people, we will be covering the cost of any of the boundaries or racial justice training from regional council, because it's not a requirement that you need for your job the same way it is for ministry personnel. I've had a couple of people say, well, you know, why do we need the boundaries training or the racial justice training? Well, the reality is that you are a leader when you are in these roles. And so the same situations could arise that would mean that you need to understand what are appropriate boundaries, and again, to provide good guidance to the governing bodies to be able to offer them advice about the racial justice situations and what is appropriate behavior in some situations. This would give you the gifts and the tools to be able to do that. And then the other piece is the police records check. And again, if you're in ministry, you've got a annual declaration, so you don't have to do anything new. If you aren't maintaining that annual declaration, or you're a layperson, again, we will provide the letter that you need to get a vulnerable sector police record check, and can help cover that cost. You may already have one because of some other volunteer work or work you do in your congregation anyway. But again, it's because you may find yourself in situations where, it's important that we have done due diligence as regional council in screening the people that we appoint. So in many ways, it's this, both sides of this, the payment and the qualifications or requirements, are a way of saying how important the role of the pastoral charge supervisor is. And our expectation is that we are going to need, the need won't diminish in the future for people who are willing to do this. And it might even be that there will be people who are part-time or retired who decide that they're going to, take on a few churches and sort of make this their specialty in ministry. So that would be an opportunity as well to help us find the people to fill these roles. I'm just curious about who maybe has already done the Church X course. I know that there are a few of you on here who've done that. If you've got any feedback on that. Eric's got a thumbs up. Thank you. Judy? Okay. We tried to make it, I see quite a few thumbs up. That's great. We tried to, John and I worked with Stephen Federer over the summer, and Stephen was excellent in saying, keep thinking about what you would say if you were having a church basement meeting, like stick to the core pieces in those videos, and then put the detailed stuff in the handbook so that we didn't bore you to tears with our initial videos. Let me put the link in the chat. Somebody's just asked about it. I don't know if
Michelle
that,
had already put it in a little further up.
oh, she did, and she's got it actually as a link.
Yep.
So she's good. She's always
Halfway.
ahead of. So yes, and if you don't already have a ChurchX account, you have to sign up for one, but there's no cost for that. There's no cost at all related to this course. So, and we are always looking for feedback, because that's how we will improve it. So if there's a section you wanted more information about, or there's something you think we're missing, then let us know. Oh, Judy, yes.
Sorry, I have another question. You mentioned that for lay people taking the racial justice and boundaries training, that they would be reimbursed for that charge. What about those of us who are retired and as
Yeah.
so right now, as a VAM, part of the VAM requirement of a designated lay minister retired is that you have to take those courses.
Right.
But there was no, so VAMs aren't paid.
Right.
So does that mean then that the region would cover the costs of upgrade of that?
At this point, the policy is that it would be for the lay employees only.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, but again, as we roll this out, we'll see how it goes. Okay, so the other piece we ask you to do is to fill out the Pastoral Charge Supervisor report every 6 months, and you can find the form is on the website under the toolkit, and it's toolkit number 6 on each website. Congregational Support Toolkit 6 has a form. There's one form that you fill out just to tell us who you are and where you're interested in serving, but this one is the report to just say, everything's going great at this congregation. They're the best bunch of people ever, and they're doing amazing things. Or to say, well, they're doing well, but we've noticed that there's some concern about their financial viability. And of course, if there's ever a situation, a crisis, a concern that pops up, and you don't need to worry about filling out a form, you can just pick up the phone and call John or I if you need need to bounce something off of us, or you're concerned about something. There's different sort of ideas about the role of a pastoral charge supervisor, and we see it as being the person who is there to provide guidance, be a resource related to United Church polity, and to also be the connection between the congregation and regional council. Because if they don't have ministry personnel, and some of them don't have a lay rep, then they don't have information coming from regional council to them. So if you can encourage them, first of all, to elect a lay rep, and secondly, to have some people sign up for the newsletter, that is always helpful. But you are also there to be that physical connection to the regional council. That's one of the reasons why, in terms of lay folks, we can only appoint someone who is a lay rep as a pastoral charge supervisor, because if they're not a member of regional council, they can't serve as that representative in that role as pastoral charge supervisor. So that is part of how you carry out your responsibilities. But as I said before, everything's unique, and we know that you might get into some situations that are either more time consuming or have some, special concerns. Yeah, Chris.
What if you're assigned as a pastoral charge supervisor and it's only a very short period of time, say a couple of months over the summer in between the clergy coming and going. Do you still need a report to be filled out for that as well?
Yeah, I mean, the report can take as little as 5 minutes to do it. And it also is helpful for us to know that you're done. Because when we're trying to track who, the timelines, sometimes a congregation, might hire somebody as a supply minister, and it doesn't get back to me right away that they no longer need the pastoral charge supervisor. Usually McCall keeps me updated on those things, but it's always good to have a second reference so that I know you're done, and I know that you're done. And there's also those situations where you need to have someone cover you in your own church. And so that is why if you are going to be away and you have to have someone, and you call a neighbor and say, I say, Chris, can you cover this meeting at my church because I'm going to be away next month? That's great. That's what we love. But still let me know, or let John know, because we have to make it formal in the minutes. Because if, for example, and I see Jean's comment about it feeling bureaucratic, and I'm sorry that's how this seems, but if, for example, there was ever a decision made at that board meeting and Chris is there and she wasn't formally appointed, and then for whatever reason this ends up being the minutes called in for a court case, if you weren't formally appointed, then there's a problem, right? So I know it seems legalistic, I know it seems like a problem, but as many people have said, United Churches get themselves in trouble when we don't follow our own rules. And so we do ask, if you have to get someone to cover you, we'd like you to find your own replacement for a meeting, but just let me know. And then we just toss it into our minutes as the Congregational Support Commission, and it's all good to go. Louise.
I just want to let you know that last night I met with one of the congregations I'm working with, and knowing they do not have a regional rep, and because as a rep to my own congregation, I need to do a report. So I took the liberty of giving them a copy of that report. And I told them, I said, I guess because this isn't part of my responsibility as Pastoral Charge Supervisor, but I want you to see what's going on. It led to a really meaningful discussion about the importance of them having their own regional rep, because there was information I was giving them that they would have no other way of getting.
Right. Thank you. And that highlights again how important it is, because people are missing the information and they don't even know what they're missing, right? So it's like that, we don't know what we don't know. I'm seeing, just checking, is there a list of people available in the regions to fill in? No, but if you ask us, because part of that's around privacy and what we, information we share, but if you are having trouble finding another minister who can cover for you, then give me a call, and we can sort of find somebody who might be available to cover, or a member of the Congregational Support Commission to cover a single meeting. The other piece that often gets overlooked by both congregations and supervisors is that you are trustees, and it's often a shock to the congregation, and people will say, I told them I was a trustee and that I'm actually can be the chair of the trustees, and they didn't realize that it was true. And so it is true. You have sort of the right to be the chair or pass it to someone else. But that is the role of both the minister, the settled or called ministry personnel, or the pastoral charge supervisor. And so it's really important that you are included in those meetings. Now, your presence is not a requirement the same way it is at the board meetings. But I would say that at least you should be getting notice of when the meetings are. Take a look at the agenda and the minutes. And if you can attend, even better, because trustee information, it gets pretty complicated sometimes. And again, there's sometimes confusion around what the trustee's role is. Judy, you're right. It doesn't have to be a minister to cover, but if it's a lay person, they have to be the lay rep for their congregation. Okay. Some of the things just to keep in mind going forward is to remind the congregations that they have to do their CRA filing every year. We've found a few congregations in the last couple of years, especially through the pandemic, that missed their filings, or somebody who'd been the treasurer for the last 20 years has stepped down and nobody else knew it had to be filed, and they've lost their charitable status. And they've been well over a year trying to get their charitable status back. So that's really important to remind them. And also to do their yearly self-assessment and to send a copy of their annual report and that assessment to John and I for the commissions to track. That is part of I guess in the past, you always took your annual report to presbytery. And so this is part of that same process that we need to have a copy of that, but a digital copy, please. I still get print copies sent to the office, and then they have to be scanned because I can't disperse them to the commissions on paper. And this year in particular, it's important that they are going to do their remit. And the remit gets voted on by the governing body of the Pastoral Charge. So if it's a 2-point Pastoral Charge, it's their Pastoral Charge Board that does the votes on the remit. If it's a single congregation, then again, it's their governing body that votes on the remit, not the congregation. And there are lots of resources on our web pages about the remit, and Therese Samuel is available to answer questions about this and about the process. I believe we have till March to get these done. And what congregations may not realize is if they do not vote, it counts as a no vote. So it is really important that everyone vote on the remit. And so if they haven't, and there's lots of educational opportunities. So if they haven't voted yet, then maybe encourage them to spend some time looking at the videos and the resources so they're prepared to vote in the new year. So those are the basics that I wanted to cover today. So I'm going to open it up to questions again about any aspect of this call to be a pastoral charge supervisor. Or if you have a specific situation you want to get the wisdom of the group, or a success story you want to share, Colin.
Yeah, I have done the training, and it said in that training that while it is not necessarily our responsibility to provide pastoral care, we should be able to provide the congregation with a list of people that they could call upon for that. And I'm wondering, where is that list? Because I never heard of one before.
Right. So McCall Cottrell and the Human Resources Commission keep a list of ministers who have offered to do worship services and sacraments. The pastoral care piece is a little fuzzier. If they're actually going to have someone do pastoral care, then it probably should be an appointment. But if you know of someone in the area, again, depends on whether we're talking like to cover for a couple of weeks or an ongoing situation, then we would want to talk to them about maybe doing a quick collaborative agreement with a neighboring church to have 5 hours a week of pastoral care or that sort of thing. So if you run into that situation, reach out to either John or I, and to McCall, and we'll help you through that.
Okay.
But what we wanted to emphasize was I find a lot of people, even when I say, okay, Colin's going to be your pastoral charge supervisor, reply back and say, oh, we're glad he's going to be our pastoral care person, right? That the terminology doesn't always connect. And I think in previous situations, often the pastoral charge supervisor did provide some additional care or assistance with worship. And that now is just too great an expectation for most folks. And so we want to be clear from the outset that this is not part of this appointment responsibility. Help them make sure they're getting something. Say, have you got a team? Have you got, but no, you're not expected to do it personally.
Thank you.
Betty. Oh, you're muted, Betty.
What are the logistics for doing the boundary and the racial justice training? How do I go about that?
I believe it's all online now,
Okay.
and it'll be through United in Learning,
Okay.
which is also being brought in under the Church X platform.
So all under Church X probably?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
And if you can't find it, again, let us know and we'll connect you. There are different times a year that it's offered, so that's why there is, I said 6 months, but again, if the courses aren't available, then we're going to understand that. We'd just like you to make a plan to sign up for the training and and get it as soon as you can. But we realize you have to wait till it's available.
Okay.
Okay. And you could use that simplified expense sheet to submit your expenses for that if you are a layperson. Anne.
I had a question about if you do choose to provide pastoral care, would that come under the hourly remuneration?
No, we would like to set that up separately, I would think. I would need to talk to McCall about that, but it's a different role. So yes, one person could do both roles. And I mean, if they ask you to do a funeral, that's sort of an aside piece because it's always separate payment and that sort of thing. But it's more the the hospital visits and those sorts of things that you would be reporting then to the M&P committee, and where in this role you are accountable to regional council.
Thank you.
Yeah. Wendy, was your hand up? And you muted yourself. Oh, you're still muted, Wendy.
There we go.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Perfect.
Okay. I've been at this for a while. I cannot find that course on Church X. I've been talking to another couple of people here who also can't. We can find the supervisor, educational supervisor course.
Right.
The pastoral charge supervisor, when I put it in search, it says no results.
Okay.
So I'm really just not sure where to find it.
Right. So it may be because it is set up to be just our regions at this point. So you have to use that link that Michelle put in the chat.
That's the one that when I press that, it goes right to the educational supervisor.
I'm
You
sorry,
sure?
Lynn, it's Michelle talking. It doesn't work. So it's not coming up under a search.
So I tried it just before the meeting.
Okay.
If you have the link, then you share it, because it's not showing public facing.
Yeah,
Okay.
when I took the course, John had to send me a link to be
Yeah.
able to get into it.
Yeah. Okay. So if I copy this and put it in, I'm not sure if it'll copy with the hyperlink in it. So howbeit, I will send out the link again to everybody in my regions that I have emails with, and I will let John know. And if you have trouble and you can't reach John, then let me know, and I'll provide you with it.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. Because we want everybody to, have a chance to watch our videos and do the quizzes. And get your certificate. Everyone's background will show their frame certificate, I'm sure. Okay. Any other questions? I'm curious, as we shift to more Zoom and sometimes phone meetings, if there's been any specific things that have come up or tips that you found helpful. Because I know I sometimes get invited to Zoom meetings where I'm on somebody's phone or laptop and they whip me around so that I can see everybody who's present. And it's really hard to focus basically on who's there, or sometimes I have trouble with hearing the conversation and have to have everything repeated. So I'm personally interested in tips and things that you maybe have found helped. George, you got your hand up.
Sorry, Lynn, I don't have any tips or tricks. I put up my hand before you requested that. Both times I've been a pastoral charge supervisor, all of the meetings have been nearby and almost all of them in person. So my question was about something I'm having a difficulty negotiating. The first time I was a pastoral charge supervisor, it was just a congregation who was in between called persons, that someone had left and they were just going into the search process, and everything went tickety-boo and they were off to their next clergy person. And right now I'm supervising a congregation that's halfway through an amalgamation and selling its property, and their capacity for accomplishing things is diminished. Yeah. And so I've been trying to figure out how much responsibility I should take for completing the work of the congregation, because there's also no longer any like functioning committees or anything. It's just a board of trustees and a council, and there's a great deal to be done. And so while it was clear the first time around that I would just supervise the work that was taking place, now I feel more called to participate in it. And so I was wondering if you could talk a little bit how I might kind of draw the line between like a voting council member who might actually participate in the work being done, and someone who's one step removed as a supervisor. Just some guidance on that, if that's all right.
Yeah, just a simple question, George. But it's a really important one, because it speaks to what I was saying, that not every call is this or appointment is the same, and that some do come with these extra responsibilities, and that's part of the reason why technically you would get paid more, because you'd be doing more. But your role is not to be the congregation or the council. It is to help them carry out their responsibilities. And you are in a situation where they are betwixt and between, because they are in moving towards amalgamation. And so they've ceased to worship as a congregation, which makes it awkward. As a trustee, you have probably more responsibility to make sure that they've done their due diligence and they've held their meetings properly and the paperwork's done, that piece, because you have a specific role as a trustee there. With council or a board, again, it would be about empowering them. If you saw they were getting really bogged down and could not do the work, then you'd reach out to me and say, like, we need to know, do they have the capacity to continue? right? And that's a difficult question. I think in this situation, because they're in transition, we would try to find a way to sort of help them through and maybe prioritize what things absolutely have to be done and what things can be let go of. But that is important to keep in mind, that you don't allow yourself to be seen as, we can just drop all the work on our supervisor and they will do it. Okay, that is not the expectation, and that is not good for them either, because it is ultimately their ministry and responsibility as the congregation. So it's finding, I guess it's working with them and with whatever other support you need to help them carry out their work.
Thank you.
Yeah. And it can be hard to say no, right? We tend to be people who like to help. And so we step in and help. And before we know it, we have this long to-do list, and that's not the role. Especially, I think, if you are in the admissions, working with an admissions minister, it's important to recognize that they are fully qualified ministry personnel. Really what you're there for is to be the support around United Church polity, that they maybe haven't taken that course yet. And so in those situations too, it's important to help facilitate their leadership as opposed to be the leader. And so it's also the same as a candidate. I remember when, I was serving as a candidate in the congregation, we had a pastoral charge supervisor, and I appreciated that she was there as support, but sort of didn't push me to the side either. So those are unique situations that some of you will find yourselves in. And I know we've mentioned before the community of faith profiles. We still live in hope that all congregations will do them, because they are excellent discernment tools. If you notice that your congregation you're working with seems to be facing financial problems or a lack of members to do the work, then it's important to start talking to them about doing that profile so that they can do some discernment. Because one of the hardest situations are the congregations who either completely run out of money or end up with nobody left to do the work, and then they're trying to disband or amalgamate. And it's exhausting because, as George said, there's nobody left to really do those final steps. So helping them to identify early that they should be starting to think about what their future looks like is one of the most helpful things you can do. Wendy. We're muted again, Wendy, sorry.
I'm so sorry. Really just something that happened to me, and I'm not sure if it's more to find out if it's a normal problem, I guess. When I became an educational supervisor, congregational supervisor, I got all kinds of advice and opinions from the former congregational supervisor, and didn't find it particularly helpful because I like to suss things out myself and form my own opinions. And I just didn't know if anybody else had that problem or not.
Does anybody want to comment on that? It can be tricky because sometimes it's helpful to know where the potholes are, and you're right, other times you don't want to prejudge people or a situation. And I can promise you that when it's a situation where we might know that is going to be complex, we'll let you know that ahead of time. We won't send you in blind. Okay. If somebody wants to comment on that in the chat too, you're free to go ahead and do so. Robin.
Yeah, I was wondering, the congregation I'm working with had someone interested in applying to the clergy role. And when the person who wanted to apply could not find it on the hub. Now, the charge had trouble getting on the hub initially, but we thought we had that all sorted out and that they had been on the hub. So who do we go to next to find out if what's happened with that?
So there's two people. They should have a liaison who is their contact person. Not every church I know has liaisons. They're struggling to find enough of them. But if not, go straight to McCall. Okay. And he will help out on that. Okay. We're going to be doing some education, like a info sheet that also helps congregations understand the difference between their pastoral charge supervisor and the liaison and the roles, because we're finding those are getting confused as well. And so we want the pastoral charge supervisor to be aware of the search process and what's involved, but it's not your responsibility to be, doing it. You encourage the initial piece, which is the profile piece, and good discernment around, what is their ministry and what they're looking for. And then the next piece is the search team is trained by McCall, and the interview process. For a lot of churches, this is new because in presbytery, which maybe the last time they did a search, somebody had to be at every one of their search team meetings, had to attend the interviews, did every step of the way. And now the liaisons are more of a resource as opposed to a
hands-on.
Exactly. Yes. And so that is a shift. So they're thinking we have to have somebody who is doing this every step. And that's an education piece for congregations. So we're also looking at the fact that the congregational meeting where they bring forward their recommendations, that the liaison must be there. That's one of those requirements. Okay. So our question is that we might, should we just appoint the liaison? Well, except we can't do that if they're not a lay rep, but to be a pastoral charge supervisor. So we don't need both of you there. Like or you're just there by phone in case something weird happens, right? We're just trying to find ways to streamline that so that we're being good stewards of our human resources. But yeah, that is a piece that we are aware is confusing. And sometimes pastoral charge supervisors also think they are supposed to be more involved in the search process. So it's confusion on both sides we're working on. Diane.
I see that the reminder of this meeting came via Facebook, and maybe I'm the only person here, but I'm not on Facebook, so it's not a particularly helpful communication device.
I also send an email out to everybody.
But it said that the prior notice had been on Facebook. If you could please avoid the use of Facebook for sending important information.
Okay. Yeah, we should have had it in the newsletter as well. It just didn't get in there. So thank you. Louise.
First of all, to answer Diane's question, you are not the only one who doesn't use Facebook. I too just found out about it yesterday. So
as did I.
But you talked about the pastoral charge supervisor and liaison. One of the congregations I'm supervising, I'm also the liaison. And I have found it so helpful because I was with them through the Living Faith story. So I got to know who they were. As a liaison, you come in and you don't get to see that. So you've got the job description, and one thing I've learned to ask for is a copy of their Living Faith story. I want to see who they are, because sometimes the job description and the who they really are, isn't quite. So I have found it really, really helpful being part of the process.
Right.
The hard part is going to be once they get their liaison, once they get their search team up and running, is separating what role you're in when you're there. But that's okay, because I can do that.
Yeah. And that's been part of our conversation too, is that one is a paid role, one is not. And so separating them is, but there are definitely situations like the one you're in that it made good sense to have that. And we're also going to try to create better communication so that the liaison knows who the pastoral charge supervisor is and vice versa, so that you can connect with each other as well.
But I also found that the board has gotten to know me. So when I go into the role of liaison, there's more of a bridge of trust has already been built. And actually even members of the congregation want to know who I am and a little bit about me. So it's nice. I'm meeting new friends.
Good. Okay. Are there any other questions? I'm just going to check down in messages here. Contact information. And thank you, Michelle, for putting in the events calendar as well. Yeah, and the community of faith profile. So Chris, you're saying that when you read that, you don't know who the contact is on the search team. Is that?
Yeah, an email to send an expression of interest to, or a contact person. Quite often the name of the faith community and the address, but I don't use snail mail quite often.
Right. Yeah. And we find a large number of congregations, their information on Church Hub is not up to date. And that means, again, that they're not getting information sent to them because they've got it in, Mrs. Smith's email address, and Mrs. Smith moved to Florida, or the mailing address went to the treasurer's house and the treasurer has moved into an apartment. There's all kinds of reasons. I tried calling a church the other day. Their phone number came up disconnected, and the second phone number was their previous minister yet on there, who was fortunately able to give me the numbers I was looking for, but it's not up to date. So again, even if they're not in search, encouraging them to get that information updated, because otherwise, when the United Church General Counsel Office sends out material as well, it's all going electronically, and if there's nothing there, like, they really should have a dedicated church email address, even if it's Trinity United number 100 at gmail.com, right? And they know who connected. So that's important, rather than having somebody's personal email being the contact. So those are little things you can just ask them if they've thought about, and again, if they have trouble updating their Church Hub account, there are people who can help. The email actually is ministry@united-church, can't spell church, .ca is who you contact with any Church Hub questions. for ministry personnel or congregations. Okay. So yes, you're asking about that. I'm going to send you the link, and I will check into that, why you're getting that you can't enroll yourself, because we've had other people who we've just sent the link to and they were able to take the course. So I'll have to check with Stephen Federer if there's been some kind of permission setting or something that's been changed. So thank you. Okay. Any other thoughts, questions? You all would like to have 2 or 3 more churches to supervise? This really is an important ministry, and you know, each regional council, we have between 40 and 60 at any one time. It's a huge number. So thank you so very much for the time that you put into this, and for the gifts and skills and compassion and caring that you bring to these positions. It is, as I said before, it is essential to the ministry of the United Church and the ministry of these congregations. If there aren't any other questions, then thank you for joining us. I will send out that ChurchX link, and if you have any troubles, let us know. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank
Lynn.
you. Thanks.
Ah, there we go. Oh, you're muted, Michelle.
Where's I? You're so good at that.
Oh,
Good job.
well, you're amazing putting the stuff in the chat. Thank you. So, and I don't know why they're having trouble with ChurchX, because like I said, I checked the link and went right in, but I'm already registered, right? Like, so that may be why. So I may have to, now if you follow.
I'll show you what it does.
Okay.
So I'm going to just share my screen with you. Share this one. This is what it says. So that link that Eric put in leads you to this screen, but it says you cannot enroll yourself in this course. And then the continue button doesn't even work.
Okay.
So it doesn't.
Can you do a screenshot of that and send it to me so I can send it to Eric Federer?
Yeah, absolutely.
Perfect. Because like I said, I thought, well, I'm going to test this right before the meeting, and I clicked the link and it, put me right in. But again, now have you got an account with ChurchX already?
Yeah, it actually wouldn't let me even go through the link without signing in. So anybody that doesn't have a ChurchX account wouldn't have got to that landing page.
Okay. Yeah, and like I said, I know there's been several people who completed it just using our link, so that's why I think something has changed.
Okay.
So I'll ask Stephen, and Stephen and John are the ones that have been sort of nattering back and forth. We were going to make it, I thought, available to other, like we've given the link to people in other regions, congregational support ministers who wanted to check it out. So I don't know if that's where something got changed too. So I'll find out.
I will send to you.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Perfect. Well, thank you so much. And I'm glad I didn't get cut off. So we're all good. And then I'll get something out for tomorrow. I knew Diane wouldn't have something positive to say, so the fact that, yeah, but we missed the deadlines. We've just been,
Yeah.
Well, you know what it's been like, so.
For some of our program staff, I post information in literally 12 different places and they still say people can't find it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, somebody's rejoining. So I'll send you that video.
Okay.
I'm gonna
Okay.
end the meeting. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.